Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Ryan Garcia versus Mario Barrios fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon, as of course you can request any kind of combat sporting related content and I will try my best to get out there for you guys, and I appreciate all the support in which I've had to do with it so far. And I feel like we've got a good kind of bunch of members in there now, and if you want to use the Patreon for boxing betting tips or just general conversation with people in the community that with kind of the like-minded topic of boxing, then join. Again, like I say, it'll be in the link in the description, and of course I appreciate all the support in which I've had with it. Also, if you are carrying on with your New Year's resolutions, which might be to stay fit in the gym, then you might be wanting to feel good whilst doing so. And then if you head over to grindactivekinetics.com, you can get yourself some fresh new gym wear, and if you use code AXEL10, you get 10% off any order. And again, the link will be in the description for that as well. Let's get straight into this one. And I mean, I just don't feel like this fight should be happening at all with Ryan Garcia. I don't think he deserves this opportunity to fight for a world title, and I think he is only getting it due to his name with the following and, you know, the backing and the hype around his name. That's literally it. He doesn't deserve it, in my opinion. He's been on a bit of a downward kind of spiral, I suppose, for the past couple of years. At least I thought. Obviously, he fought Devin Haney, and that was, a big thing. He looked good in that fight, and he managed to drop Haney twice. But a downward spiral mentally, that was for sure for him. And then he got banned for a while, for a year, and then he's lost his return against Rolly Romero badly, in which I don't feel like he should have been fighting for a world title straight away anyway. I feel like if you get banned from your sport for taking performance enhancing drugs or just, getting caught in general and getting banned from your sport, you shouldn't then come back after a year's break and basically be rewarded with what is 2 world title fights. And that's the truth, and that's what he's been given. And the Romero fight was a shock defeat. That fight was there to set up the rematch for Haney. But, I mean, Ryan, he's got 1 win in his last 4 fights. Obviously that's not a good look on the resume. Of course, again, you look at the Haney fight and you say he won that fight. But you, of course, have to factor in all the other things that he was taking, to help boost him at that point. I don't know. I just, in my opinion, believe this fight shouldn't have happened. The last fight probably shouldn't have happened. But, I would have understood if they'd gone for a Devin Haney rematch just because of how the first fight went. But, the fact that they straight away put it in for, a world title fight, again, it's weird in my opinion. And, I just don't feel like you should reward somebody for cheating, and, the WBC just seemed to not really care, and are just, like I say, rewarding him with this WBC title shot. And I mean, if he wins, at least I suppose the hype will be back there for the rematch with Haney. Now that Haney has got himself back into a creditable position after the first fight. After the first Haney-Ryan fight, obviously it looked bad on Haney how he performed and, the way that he got dropped twice. But, since then he's been able to go out there and get a couple good wins, especially his last one against Brian Norma Jr. So now the hype is there if Ryan is to beat Mario Barrios, which is, I'm sure, what, His Excellency and Ring Magazine and everybody like that, that's what they're hoping for. He beats Mario Barrios, and they're probably, the hype is there for a Haney fight. Will they do it straight away? Maybe, maybe not. There is a couple of good matchups, but again, with the name value, that will probably always be the biggest fight in the welterweight division at the moment. Ryan did say after the Romero fight, I saw on kind of like a more recent interview, that he said that the drugs and everything they taken and all the drinking and everything like that they done before the Haney fight had kind of taken a toll on him in training and everything like that for the Romero fight, and it wasn't kind of completely out of his system, I suppose, but again, it was a bit of a shock to the system, I suppose, to be training so hard again. And that wouldn't even surprise me if that was the case from, obviously what we kind of suspected and what we could visibly see. It looked like there was a lot going on with Ryan before the Haney fight, and it was entertaining to see from kind of an entertainment perspective, but it was a bit sad to see as well. So, you know, to that could affect anybody, and that could really, like, for a long term, affect anybody. Like, he might never be the same mentally. He might not have the same reactions. He might not, be as sharp. That's something that was there with him could have possibly gone as a result of the everything that he'd done. Again, we'll have to wait and see. I don't think he's looked the same since the Davis loss, to be honest. The Davis loss was quite a devastating one where you could kind of see that he didn't want to be in there anymore, and he did quit. And after that one, he fought Oscar Duarte, which obviously is a win that's aged really well for him, but he wasn't looking that good in that fight. It was a lot of movement, not really much going on, and then he just landed a good punch, which ended up, hurting Duarte. He was up on the scorecards, and it wasn't a bad performance, but it wasn't, the exciting, performances in which we were kind of getting used to, and, we were that's what making the fans enjoy Ryan Garcia's fights. It was different, and obviously, in the past, Ryan's taken time out for his mental health and stuff like that as well. So I think there's always been a lot going on with Ryan Garcia. So you kind of never do know which version of him you're going to get. And again, this fight, I feel like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's going to say that much, just because I really don't rate Mario Barrios. I don't know if it's going to say that much about where he is at mentally, but the next time he takes a big step up, that's, what's going to show if he's ever going to be able to get to it. Because I think he has possibly one more big fight left in him, which, of course, if he wins this one, they're going to put him in against. And then if he loses it, I think that's kind of him done, to be fair. I mean, this is the easiest opportunity he's going to get to win a world title, in my opinion. And I mean, it is crazy to think that he hasn't actually won a world title. He's won an interim world title, but he's not won a full world title. And, it's pretty surprising, to be fair, saying all the big fights he's had and all the following he's had and all the kind of name and everything. He's never actually won a world title. So this is, again, like I say, the easiest opportunity, in my opinion, for him to win a world title. If he doesn't win one now, and if he loses this fight, then I really don't think there's much left for Ryan Garcia. But, again, you could say that for Barrios as well. If he loses this fight, he can rebuild, but I just don't know if he's going to be able to get back to kind of the same level again. But to speak a bit more about Barrios, he is also fortunate, in my opinion, as well, through being elevated to being a full world champion, when in the first place he was quite fortunate to get the opportunity at an interim belt, because he not too long ago before lost twice, and he got an interim title fight against Jordan Ugas, which was a pretty crazy fight where Ugas got knocked down twice, but then there was also a time in which Barrios got hurt in that fight as well. But that was probably one of the more interesting fights in which we've actually had, with Barrios having success in recent times. But since being champion, he's fought once a year and has drawn twice. Not really against the best of opponents either. Not to discredit what Pacquiao achieved getting back into the ring in his late 40s, but when he fought Barrios, that was a fight in which maybe Barrios was not trying to knock him out, not trying to hurt him, because he didn't want to disrespect the older guy in Pacquiao. But he didn't look sharp. He didn't look like he kind of was in control at any point. It didn't look like he was coasting through it. Didn't look like he was in control of the fight at any point, really. And then the Ramos fight as well was somebody who had recently lost twice and then shouldn't really been given a world title shot himself. And then that was a closer fight in which, it should have really been, and that was on a bit low down of a Jake Paul undercard, I think. So again, I just don't feel like that should have been that close to a fight either. And then also the fact that he's then not given a rematch to either of them, even though he's been given big paydays from both of them, in, especially the Pacquiao one. He got given a big payday in the Pacquiao one. I'm sure he also got paid well for the Ramos one because it was on the Jake Paul undercard, but he got paid well for the Pacquiao one, I'm sure. And now he's just not given either of them a rematch, and instead he's been given another payday, which he's gonna, really get paid well, because this is, a big Ring Magazine fight. And he's been, matched against a big name, which is, just gonna elevate his platform. So again, for him, I suppose it's just a win-win. He's done kind of everything he's wanted to do, but I feel like that I would like to see, and I would like to hope that this is the kind of last time in which we could possibly see Barrios get about. If he comes and he dominates and he wins really well, then credit on him, but I just don't know. I just don't see it, in my opinion. And, again, we could make the argument that he was not trying to hurt Pacquiao, and that's why he, allowed the fight to go the way it did. But again, I just don't feel like fights like the Ramos fight really, showed or proved to anybody that he is a fair world champion, or that he, is a world champion pedigree, at least in my opinion. To speak about both fighters individually, though, and Garcia as a fighter, he's of course been known for his hand speed and his reactions and his kind of sharpness about him. And it is good, it is sharp, it is fast. The right hand, especially the swiping right hook in which he throws, is good. He turns into it well. But is it still there? Is it still as sharp of a weapon? Is it still as clean? When you are so reliant on being fast and being reactive and being sharp, you really have to keep that. If you lose that, then you're losing a part of your game, which is such a big part of your game. Somebody like not to say that Ryan Garcia is the same as Roy Jones Jr., but it's an easy comparison in what I've just been saying. Roy Jones Jr. was so quick, so fast, so sharp, and he was able to spring in and then get out. As soon as he stopped being able to do that, or at least it slowed down a bit, then you got hurt a lot more. It could possibly be the same thing here. I'm not saying that Garcia's on the older side of things or anything. He's not. He's still very young. But it's like, say, if he's kind of messed up his body already and all the things that he's done outside of the ring, possibly that could still be the case. But, typically he's explosive, he has good power, he does have that one-punch knockout power, and that's, an impressive thing as well. And to come with the speed, it's always, able to catch you off guard. I think he's strong with pretty much every punch he throws. He's got good timing, he's got a good jab, and he's able to get that through well, and he can control the range quite well. You see him often kind of leaving out his jab and kind of poking it out to then manage the range, but then he can still bring it back quite quickly as well when he's at his sharp best. He circles well. Again, possibly a bit too much in certain fights, like again, kind of touching upon that Duarte fight, but I don't think Barrios is going to be putting on that same kind of front foot pressure as what Duarte was. He can fight on the front or the back foot. He's not got a bad kind of Philly showing which he uses, and he can kind of see you coming and then duck out the way and kind of weave out the way of shots like that. But again, defensively, I still don't think he's that good in my opinion. And he can fight going backwards, which is something in which I think is impressive with his game. Negatives about him, he can rely on speed, just too much in my opinion, and that of course can, cause problems if you do get caught out. He can be very much overconfident, and I think he can coast in fights as well. Again, referencing the Duarte fight, I feel like he was coasting in. I feel like he was underestimating Romero in their fight, and I think he was just a bit too tentative in the Gervonta Davis fight. But then when he tried to switch it up, he just didn't, he got caught out because defensively he does leave gaps. He can not prepare for counters well enough, in my opinion. He can get caught when he is kind of standing quite straight up and quite, like I say, upright. His footwork in close isn't the best, and again, that's what I feel like caught him out against Romero. He does drop his hands throughout the fight. He's been hurt. He's shown that quit in him as well. He can wait too long to work combinations or to just throw in general. And again, that's been a thing that's, a few people have realised in fights. Again, when he gets hurt, I just don't feel like he handles that adversity that well. A lot of the elite fighters, again, you look at somebody like a Antuanne at the moment. Antuanne's been dropped on multiple occasions, but then he's made the adjustments, he's come back and he's improved and he's gotten back stronger in the fight. Whereas the times in which Ryan Garcia has been damaged or hurt was, the Gervonta Davis fight where he got dropped and then, pretty much just didn't want any more of it. Then also the last fight with Romero where he was able to go the full distance, but he just looked like he didn't really have anything left to give or was just kind of coasting through it. He was just wanting to get through it. He's not got that, I think, willingness always to dig deep, in my opinion. And I also don't think he shortens his jab that well. That could be a big, strong weapon of his because his jab is really good. I just like to see it shortened a little bit because I think Barrios actually does that well. Barrios, as a fighter though, he's got good straight shots, and when he does use them in combinations, I think that's some of his best work, and it's nice. It looks fluid and it looks pretty clean, but he just doesn't use it enough, in my opinion. He's got decent timing, catching you lunging in. He was able to do it on a couple of occasions against Pacquiao, and again, it does look good. He keeps his shape better. Generally, I would actually say he probably has better stationary footwork than that of Garcia. Garcia has better circular movement, but stationary footwork, I think Barrios, his is in a better spot. He's got a consistent jab that can be shortened well, and again, he was able to drop Ugas with that, which was a nice shot. And pretty much all of his work includes or is worked off the jab. Again, most of it is using that. He's a mid-range type fighter for the most part, which I think Garcia will probably play into him, probably not mind having a mid-range fight with him. His hands are high for the most part, and again, he does leave gaps when he's throwing, but his hands are high, even though it's not that tight. And he does turn it up more when he needs to, and that's just to kind of win the rounds later on. He was arguably down on the scorecards to a lot of people's views against Pacquiao, but again, that was around the ninth round, 10th, 11th, 12th. You could see that he was turning up when he needed to. Negatives about him, I don't think he's as sharp or as fast as that of Garcia. He throws less with power, in my opinion. He can be outworked, especially, he has big gaps of just not really doing a whole bunch. He doesn't really like messy fights. I don't think Garcia will have this as a messy fight, but, I just don't feel like he likes messy fights or fights in close that much. He does typically like to fight at a slower pace. He can fight at a faster pace, but again, then he's leaving a lot more gaps when he's doing that. He does get caught a lot more when he's doing that. He wants to be able to control the pace. His head's on the line a lot. He's not got the best movement as he can often freeze up. He can be countered over his jab, which was something in which Pacquiao was actually doing quite well against him. He gives too much respect, I feel like, in fights, in every one of his fights. And when he actually tries to turn it up and fight aggressively, again, he gets countered a lot and he leaves a lot more gaps defensively. Who do I think is going to win this fight? I think Ryan Garcia is going to be able to win via TKO in round 6. Again, I don't think he deserves this fight, but I think he is going to be able to win it. I don't really rate Mario Barrios that much, in my opinion. I think he's shown many vulnerabilities in his fights now, and he's shown that he isn't a world-class level fighter, in my opinion, even though he is still somehow a world champion. I don't believe you can call yourself a world champion when you've had 2 title fights and they both ended in draws. That's just my opinion. Ryan Garcia, I'm going to go with that, TKO victory. I think that power, he can rely on it and he can probably still win. I don't know if he's going to be looking his best. I'm definitely going to be intrigued to see how good he looks because, I feel like I'm coming into this fight with high expectations of, if he's getting given this opportunity, which many fighters would love to get given, he really does have to show that he deserves it, in my opinion. And again, that's what my thought process is going into it. But yeah, I'm going to say he's going to win via TK in round 6. Pretty comfortable, in my opinion, because of the fact that he's going to be able to hurt Barrios when Barrios leaves them gaps. Then who we can go on to fight next? I mean, the Devin Haney fight is always going to be there, and with both of them having a title, that would make sense, and that sure is what His Excellency was wanting to do in the first place. So that could, then be made into a rematch. Or if they've got different plans from both for the moment, a Conor Benn fight is there. Technically, Sissoko has been the WBC mandatory for a long time, but that's just not happened. He just sat there as mandatory and nobody's actually letting him fight for the title. If I was him, I'd be fuming with Ryan Garcia getting a title shot. But again, possibly Sissoko, but it's just not a big enough fight, and I just don't think they would make it, even though they should. Or the Romero rematch, again, another champion. Possibly that could happen as well. WBA champion. I'm pretty sure he is. So again, that could happen as well. Moving on now to 2 more fights in which I want to be speaking about on this card. And the first one is Richardson Hitchins versus Oscar Duarte for the IBF World Super Lightweight title. I think this definitely could play into being a good fight if the kind of styles are able to clash. I think they definitely could with both the styles they possess. Hitchins has proven himself now as a good world champion. Last time he beat and, in my opinion, hopefully kind of got rid of George Kambosos from elite fights, because I just don't feel like Kambosos deserved that title shot, and he did get one and he looked poor, and Hitchins was able to just pound him down to the body and eventually get him out of there. And he also beat Liam Paro to get the belt as well, which was a good win, to be fair, for him, and he made Liam Paro look not kind of that level, even though Liam Paro is now getting a title shot himself. So again, that's another victory that has aged well, and again, he's proven himself as a world champion. I believe he is still with Matchroom though, even though I think Eddie was annoyed with him after his last fight, because I think Hitchins, I can't really remember, but I'm pretty sure in some sort of post-fight interview or something he was saying that he was a free agent, and so maybe that's why we haven't seen Hitchins in a while. Maybe they were sorting out some contractual agreements, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe there was a bit of a disagreement between Hitchins and Eddie. Again, I'm not too sure, but they are still in cahoots with each other in the way of him promoting Hitchins. But this fight, you would say, is the first pressure fighter that Hitchins has had to fight since the Lemos fight, in which he struggled to assert himself in. In that Lemos fight, it was the toughest fight arguably of his professional career. Stylistic wise, he struggled a lot. He was on the back foot, and Lemos was kind of all over him, throwing him, making it messy, smothering him, and he didn't really know what to do. And he was actually quite fortunate to get the win in that one. Again, most likely just because he was the home fighter. And I just don't think he's fought somebody. Para is not really that much of a pressure fighter, and neither is Kambosos. Both of them are happy to fight at a mid-range, and I think fighting at a mid-range with Hitchins, it's a tough fight to win. But Duarte, yes, isn't as messy or as smothering or is giving as big of an output as that of Lemos, but he's still going to be a pressure fighter. And if you are, standing on the ropes and things like that, he is going to work. And I don't rate Hitchins' movement that much. So again, it could make it a very interesting fight. Duarte, though, has rebuilt well from his loss to Garcia, and I don't mind seeing him get this title shot again. If he's lost to somebody and then can rebuild, and then has gotten a couple good wins on his resume against top contenders, then you deserve a title shot. And again, I don't mind this. He's got a good win out last time against Sims Jr. in what was a good close fight, but he was pushing the tempo. Sims Jr., he had him on moments, loading combinations, and he was kind of pushing him about the ring a bit at times. Sims Jr. was having bits of success, but Duarte was still dominating, in my opinion, enough to win. And I liked seeing Golden Boy still keep putting him on the tops of their shows and main events, and I do think from the Garcia fight, his name and his pedigree has grown, and with his style as well, it's exciting, it's entertaining, even though it's a bit more of a calculated, defensively tighter Mexican style than just an all-out brawl, in my opinion. But this will be a different test for him as well. With the last time that Duarte fought at a real world level was of course Garcia, and that's a different style. Garcia was very defensive, very just circling around, whereas Hitchins could be very defensive and possibly might be circling around, but I think he's going to be a little bit more trying to give it a little bit more. He's not coming off a bad loss like Garcia was when he fought Duarte, if that makes sense. Duarte has shown he can't deal with movers that well. He wasn't really throwing much when he was trying to follow Garcia, and Garcia knew that, and I'm sure that's just why he kept moving. But Hitchins, again, like I said, I don't rate his defensive movement that much, and his speed is great. So if he was able to, get his movement going, it could be a very good dominating performance by him. But I just don't rate his movement that much, and I think he could get caught on the ropes at times. But Hitchins late on with Kambosos went toe to toe, and he could do that in this fight. I just don't think that's a smart thing for him to do against Duarte. If Duarte can do more and not have moments of not doing work, where he can definitely have moments where he's just kind of following, like I say, he's not really doing too much. And again, Sims was able to have success with that. Garcia was able to have success with that. And also he's been hurt badly by Garcia, which of course Hitchins hasn't been hurt that badly. Again, we will have to wait and see how he can deal with the punches of Hitchins. Hitchins, I don't think is a massive power puncher, but he does have a snap there to him, and with the speed as well. He will definitely get caught with a jab a lot from Hitchins. He will try and walk through it. He might be able to walk through it, because I don't think it's a tremendously strong jab, even though it's very quick and sharp and is brought back well. It's not the most powerful. So again, it will be interesting to see if he can walk through it or not. But I think every time that Hitchins throws it, it will land on him. And again, that's at least point scoring. I'm going to go for Richardson and Hitchins, a majority decision win. I think, again, every time he's going to throw the jab, he's going to land. And I think Sims was having success with the jab when he fought Duarte. And again, it's going to be a stylistic clash. If, like I mentioned, Hitchins can get his movement going a bit better and not just have moments where he sits on the ropes, then he'll be able to have success. You can kind of see the shots of Duarte coming, so if you can get out the way of them using his speed, he might be able to do that like Ryan Garcia did. But he's probably, in my opinion, going to have to go to full distance. I don't think he's going to be able to knock out Duarte, because I don't think he has that kind of snap and that momentum changer of a fight like Garcia does. And then who he can go on to fight, I mean, it'll be a close fight and it'll be a competitive fight, so I don't think it's going to raise his stock tremendously. Delgado is still there ranked with Top Rank, but I just don't feel like Top Rank want to push him anymore, even though they've got him in a ranked position. Keyshawn Davis could be a little route to get, a title shot, but it'll be an interesting fight there if the two of them do go head to head. Or Biaslanov is a Canadian fighter, Artur Biaslanov, He's 20-0, I think, and has got himself in a good ranked position. Possibly that could happen, but again, I don't think there would be too much excitement around that. Moving on to the final fight which I'm going to be speaking about on this card, and that is Gary Antuanne Russell versus Andy Hiraoka for the WBA World Super Lightweight title. And I was hearing the rumours of this fight a while ago, quite a while ago, I feel like now, of this fight happening and Hiraoka getting that title shot, because he's been around at the top of the WBA rankings in the super lightweight division for a good minute now. But I'm not really too sure what has taken so long for it to happen. I mean, Russell has now been out for almost a year from his fight with Valenzuela, and Hiraoka's been out for over a year now. I think he fought in September of 2024 against Ismael Barroso. And so again, like I say, it's just been a while since we've seen either of these two guys fight. And as a champion, you want to see Russell fight more than just once a year. And Hiraoka, I understand if he's not been getting the fight, then he's going to probably want to just wait and hold his position instead of taking a risky fight, because in his mind, he's already beaten what was top WBA guy in Barroso. But again, I just don't know why this fight hasn't been able to happen sooner. I just don't think there's been any blocks unless there's been an injury that I don't know about from one of the two of these. Again, I feel like Russell was fortunate as well to get a title shot. He was in a close fight with strange scoring against Puello, which he lost, but it was a competitive fight. But then he was put into a world title fight in his next fight against Valenzuela. Again, I just don't know. I don't know if it's always fair to put fighters who have a good name. Of course, Russell's got the good family name that he has, just if they lose straight into another world title shot, but he did get that with the WBA. Maybe that was showing that the WBA didn't want Valenzuela as a champion. They preferred the power puncher of Russell as a champion. Again, that could possibly be the case. They had Isaac Cruz, fight with the belt, and then he lost it to Valenzuela. That was quite a shocking moment when he lost to Valenzuela, and maybe, the WBA wanted to just straight away put him in against whoever they could find who was the hardest puncher, who's going to cause the most damage. Of course, they actually went the full distance, and Russell has now gone the full distance twice now in his career, but that was it was still a good performance from Russell. I was actually very impressed with his fight, especially coming off his defeat as well. Again, it wasn't that bad of a defeat, but still, to see how much I feel like he dominated that fight against Valenzuela, it was impressive. And even though he wasn't able to KO him, I still believe he had him hurt at times. Hiraoka as well, he's got a nice on the eye resume with KOs, but really only one notable win on his resume being Barroso, who he made come to Japan and fight him, and he was coming in off a shock KO victory against Ishmael Davis, I think it was. He was coming in off that win, and that was a big moment, and I think he was like WBA interim champion at that point. And then, Hiraoka made him come over to Japan, and then, Barroso was in his 40s at that point. He's, yes, coming off a good KO, but he had been KO'd multiple times, and I mean, Hiraoka basically did just outbox him for the most part and had a lot of success, and then was able to knock him out, even though I don't feel like he actually is that powerful a fighter. I think he just hasn't fought that good level of opposition. But again, he's, other than that, not really fought anybody else. He fought Jin Sasaki at one point, but of course Sasaki has just been knocked out by Brian Norman Jr. in what was literally the Ring Magazine KO of the year. So again, I just don't feel like he's fought really anybody that noticeable, and I mean, I don't feel like he's that actually good of a power puncher, in my opinion. I think he is quite a one-dimensional fighter who's, got a good jab and is able to use it well and can use his range, but I just don't think he's that complete of a fighter. Russell is pure entertainment in his style, I believe. He is very offensive. He finds the gaps for the big shots, and he just works away continuously in the pocket. He does leave quite a lot of defensive gaps, though, and it's definitely an easy target to land on, relying on his power quite a lot, but just not many people can handle his power. Puello was able to handle his power and was able to, respond back with his combinations and, find the gaps when Russell was throwing, and that's how Puello was able to get the win. But, Russell was also dealing with a southpaw for the first time against Puello, whilst actually he's now shown that he can deal with a southpaw with his fights against Valenzuela. And of course, Hiraoka is a bit of a tricky southpaw in that way with his style as well. So again, it'll be another southpaw test for him, but again, I think he is a bit more used to it now. Hiraoka does all his work pretty much with his rangy jab. He pairs it up well, he holds his shape well, and he moves. He is willing to move back and to, show a little bit of movement, I suppose, to bait you into then jab. I think it's going to be tough for him for Russell to come in without getting caught with anything. I think Hiraoka will catch him with something because he has got fast hands, but I don't think he is throwing much with power in my opinion, whilst having his hands low a lot and his chin quite exposed, and he does look uncomfortable when he's going backwards with him only going back in straight lines as well. I just don't think he's going to bide well for him. I think when Antuanne Russell gets him up against the ropes, I think he's just not going to be comfortable, not be used to fighting in that kind of position, because Barrios just wasn't able to do it at all at that point of his career. Again, if Barrios had fought Hiraoka maybe earlier on, it might have been a different story, but still, again, I just don't think that Hiraoka's been tested at a high enough level. I think Antuanne Russell's going to win via KO in round 4. I think it is going to be a pretty comfortable KO victory for Russell, and a good win to have on his resume to kind of make a dominant KO victory in the world level kind of rankings, in which we haven't quite seen yet from Russell, even though, again, I don't feel like Hiraoka's been tested tremendously hard just yet. But again, it's a good return to the knockouts for Russell. And then who we can go on to fight next, I mean, Cruz for the WBC, he's got the WBC interim champion, but Cruz versus Antuanne Russell, I feel like has to be a fight to be made. That would be such a war, and that would be so entertaining, and I would be really invested in that. But I just don't know if that would happen because of the WBC having Cruz as the interim champion. But they don't really want to make Cruz fight for the full title, so why not just let him fight in the WBA title? I don't know, maybe it could happen, but we'll have to wait and see. Argba is a Russian fighter who's undefeated, who's ranked just below Hiraoka. So again, that could be something that could happen, but again, it wouldn't be that big of a fight. Or to mention a guy in which I've just mentioned, Gervonta Davis, that could happen. Possibly he might be more willing to fight something like a Antuanne Russell. I feel like Davis could possibly get a title shot within his next fight or so. So again, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, indeed like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.